And here we are, and you might have noticed that this video does not have a list of all of the things that occurs. That's more so down to the fact that we'll kind of be retreading about 80% of the map to collect the remaining items. I'd like to say this was easy, but this was not a very graceful run. It doesn't help that much like last time, or it might have been this time that I did it, but I did not actually formulate an accompaniment guide video. I just read the guide, because I had a decent memory of where the final collection stuff was, because back in the day, it's something that I had to redo a lot, and so naturally because of that repetition that happened, I'm familiar with where most of the stuff is. And a point of the multiple runs I made to try and get this to work in a smooth motion, I familiarized myself with how to most quickly navigate the maps to get to what I needed to get to. But a lot of this final stuff, aside from requiring the screw attack, which I think is the last ability power-up you get in the game, a lot of this stuff also requires tricky stuff, like this Shine Spark gag, where if your timing is a little bit off, or if you do the jump up to the next level wrong, you'll end up having to go all the way back down to the bottom to redo it again. And this stuff is just designed to leech time, unless you get it perfect the first time. I tried saving the Shine Spark for the descent, but it's too far down anyways. You have to make a run from the other side. So you need to gain height by jumping up in a forward, like, screw attack style jump, but then you have to shoot to reset Samus into a non-somersaulting state, and then Shine Spark into that section to open that bit. And that's the thing, that's not the only insidious power-up to collect in the tropical section in particular. Like, the crumbling block thing, what sadist over at Nintendo thought that was a good idea? I get that 100% completion with the 2-hour limit and so forth is intended for perhaps more hardcore players who are really going to be down to brass tacks and really focused, but at the same time, that whole challenge to get that power-up, that was just mean. I mean, that's reminiscent of that Shine Spark thing from Zero Mission, where you have to, like, go up a series of ramps, like I did for that last one, and then make a drop through a thing in order to stop yourself, and then launch it. Oh god, yeah, some of the things in Zero Mission were like this, which makes sense considering that Zero Mission was made following this, and I think using a lot of the same, probably engine elements, not the same assets, because I think Zero Mission looked a bit better. A little more detail in the pixels, which it's not like it has more pixels, it's the same hardware. Again, like I said in a previous video, it's probably just an issue with the art design, that it was improved for Zero Mission because they'd done this. They knew how to make it even better. Yeah, here's another so all of these blocks that I'm hovering over now will break and drop you to the bottom of the room. So if you're not good at timing your space jumps properly, you are screwed. So you gotta get the rhythm down. And there we go, I made it. So if I had touched the ground at any point there, it would have canceled out my space jump, and I would have plummeted. It would have been bad. It would have been bad. Because then I'd have to go all the way back to the start and do it all over again. But that's the thing, these things are designed to kill your time. Unless you get it perfectly in one go, you have to go back to the start and try it again, and try it again. So I think that's it for the tropical environment. Glad to see the back of that place. Back the way we came, through SRX, because that's where we need to go. Like, Aqua's done. We don't need to worry about that. But yes, according to the guide, this is the more efficient path, because were you to go the other way and try looping yourself back around, you wouldn't be where you need to be as readily as if you just double back through SRX. There's those Metroid shells I pointed out in the last video. Now here in this was actually a clever bit that I did here where I charged it up over there rather than having to clear the enemies out down below, and then destroy the screw attack blocks and just shine spark directly through. Because the guide actually suggested getting that power up when you first visit this sector, but I was like, but I'm gonna have to come through the thing anyway and I'll be able to build up the run. But the real trick is saving it just before those screw attack blocks so you can break them and then use it at the other end. And there was a power-up here before, like down below, but we needed a power bomb, and when we were last here, we didn't have one. But yes, one of the power-ups in here is one of the ones I missed in one of my more successful runs, which was upsetting. Because there's the long shaft with the snakehead things, and you drop down it, and there's a power-up off to the left in this lava maze that you couldn't go through before because you need the gravity suit. That's another block that we didn't have the power bomb at the time to get to. Yeah, I didn't go to the left because I completely forgot that there was a thing in there that I need to get, so I had to do it all over again because I hadn't saved or anything, so I had to go back and I had to do it all over again. Oh, if I sound perhaps a little elated, it's because Metroid Fusion is done. The 2D installments, at least the ones that I can readily play now, are over. And it all came good in the end. It turned out to be, 100% completion in the completion time, with 12 minutes to spare, despite a screw-up of, missing an item the last episode and having to collect it here. It all still worked. Now, the fact that I had so much time to spare has me thinking, because I was speaking a lot about how it's difficult to complete this in the completion time, but had I not missed that item, I probably could have completed this in an hour and 45 minutes with a full 15 minutes to spare, which is a lot when you think about it. That's not an inconsiderable amount of time. So why did I have so much trouble before? In all my previous attempts, I swear it's the tropical environment, either me getting lost or going down the wrong path in there because of how samey the environment looks and how maze-like it is, or it was missing an item specifically in that underwater aquatic section, which was also just doesn't allude to where the secrets are very well. One of those maps got me. Or missing an item in Ark, which I have a tendency to do so often that it even happened during this playthrough when I was using a guide and I missed a bit. Good thing it was only one. A lot of these are power bomb tanks. So yeah, there's a whole gaggle, a whole mess of stuff in the access way that leads out of Pyro on the other side, on the left. Here's the critical bit, though. If you're playing this for a first run, A, you don't get an indicator as to whether or not you've collected all of the items. And B, once you head into the sort of save, navigation, recharge rooms of each sector, you get locked in to facilitate the plot. But here's the thing, that was a conscious decision, Because when you're doing like a New Game Plus and all of that, those stay unlocked so that you can double back out in order to get the items. Why lock them in the first place? That just adds to the player's inconvenience. A lot of Shine Spark dependent stuff, but stuff that also requires you to have either a power bomb or a screw attack to clear an obstruction to be able to accumulate a Shine Spark in the first place. And here Samus just leaves the ship. She's just in space now. Good thing she's wearing a suit. So here is where I could not just leave and go out the other way. I had to double back in order to get the item that I'd missed. And like I said, what's really unfortunate is it was last episode. I could have just redone that and had a smooth run all the way through, and I would have had to have done that had I not been able to get the completion time with this, you know, sidetrack mission. But I was able to get the completion time with time to spare, and I had already edited the other episode and recorded the audio for it and the timing and everything, so it's like, you know what? Leave it. A small tarnish on the run is not going to kill it. It's fine. Leave it alone. I did push this video up to twice the length of some of the other ones, but the thing is, splitting it here wouldn't make sense, because this is all a continuous run. It would be one video of me just wandering around gathering stuff, and then another video of more of that, plus the end of the game. It just wouldn't make sense. Because that's the thing, I'm looking at the timetables right now. Had I gone to collect everything, and then stopped it before the plot resumed to do a new video, it'd be less than 20 minutes. And then you'd have one that's more than 20 minutes. It just doesn't really work organically. Because that's the point. I don't just cut stuff arbitrarily, like I want it to be this time. I try to make as organic a transition as possible where I'm not in the middle of something when I make the cut. Because that's a literal jump cut. Jump cuts are fine for humor or for really lowbrow work, but you want a cut to feel like it's in an appropriate location. It's not just out of the blue. Because that's the thing. I mean, I already made this big rant about how Ridley in this game is underwhelming as a boss, because by the time you face Ridley, you're more than equipped enough to just brute force your way through the fight. And this is an enhanced Ridley, too. This is Neo Ridley that has been roided up by the X-Parasites. But again, Samus has done this so often before, which is why a completely different member of the same species squawking at Samus in Other M, causing her to lose her mind, lose her suit, lose her shit, doesn't make any damn sense. But the final boss fight in here also doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because the SAS still has some abilities that Samus lacks, like the Ice Beam, critically. Well, off the top of my head, that's about it. The Ice Beam. Oh, here's another one of those insidious speed boost ones. If you place these bombs in the wrong place, instead of bridges to let you build up a Shine Spark, barriers raise up and you have to leave the room and start all over again. And you also still have to do a little bit of jump wizardry here to actually get the Shine Spark to work the way you need it to work to destroy the wall. And then, in order to get out of the room, you have to successfully do a Shine Spark the other way, so you can end up stuck in this room until you get the bridge there set up properly. And the thing is, there's another room in this same sector that's going to require more Shine Spark shenanigans. So we need to Shine Spark into it again. And much like where we were in the tropical habitat, this is another place where we have to do the thing. So, a little hint for that, it's the 5th pillar. You want to count the sort of lines on the ground, those little sections. And at the 5th pillar, you want to Shine Spark up on the right side of it, because it's about 2 Samus hitboxes wide. And then this thing, which you're supposed to, like, make the jump on the ramp, which requires split-second timing and a D-pad that doesn't occasionally screw you over. Other than that, you have to... I honestly hate this jump worse than that vertical climb, because once you know where to do it, it's fine. But this thing requires pinpoint execution. Like there, I was short. I missed the top portion of the thing. So this required a few do-overs. But yeah, if I'd made an actual perfect run where each of these only took one attempt, it would have taken even less time. Thing is, I still question how speedrunners could sort of make this stuff happen in, like, less than an hour. I mean, I know that they have, but it's just... Everybody's wowed by speedrunners, and the thing is, when they do it, they're almost like automatrons. They're just automatically, it's all muscle memory. They don't actually think about it. But we see it, and we imagine... Because here's the thing, they don't think about it while they're doing it. But don't mistake that for being there not to have been a lot of thought ahead of time. They had to develop a plan for how they were going to tackle it. This is another insidious thing to get, because... You gotta, like, jump at the perfect moment, and it's stupid and terrible, and I hate this one as well. This is another sadistic one. And it took me a few tries. There we go, finally. Because what can happen is that you can be at the level for a ledge grab, but if you land on the floor block beneath you, you won't grab the ledge, then you'll just fall. It's so stupid. But yeah, speedrunners have to put a lot of time and effort into planning a route, how they're going to do it, trial and error. And the reason it's so second nature to them, they don't even have to think about it, it's not necessarily impressive in terms of, like, how skilled they are. Because what you're witnessing is the fruit born of an incredible amount of effort that you don't see. So this is basically... This is the easy part of the job. It's all the pre-planning, the practice rehearsals, it's all of that was the difficult part. Then it's just a matter of doing it. And getting that sense of the muscle memory and so forth down that you accomplish the goal. This is honestly what pushed the video over, 8 minutes of this. But I didn't want to speed this up because this is probably one of the most important character plot points. Technically, those eagle-eyed may have seen a cut where I spliced footage in, because my previous run where I missed that thing in the pyro section, the thing in the lava maze, is where I recorded this. But when I redid it, which is what you've seen for the rest of this and what you'll see after this conversation, I sped through this because I was done. So this is actually an intercut of the dialogue playing from my last attempt and the playthrough from this attempt, which... Again, with the organic cuts, unless you notice that small stutter when the dialogue box opened, because it's difficult to... Like I said, the video editing software is not great. It's hard for me to hone into a precise fraction of a second point. Unless you notice that, you might have just thought that this was just part of a continuous run. So, basically, yeah, the Federation wants the X-Parasites. Critically, though, they want the SAX. Yep, capturing the SAX, of course. Well, think about it. If they could bend... Because the SAX isn't a person. If they could bend the SAX to their will, because it functionally has no rights, unlike Samus, they would have a warrior with the power of Samus that they can make do whatever they want it to do. The problem is that the X is a subversion entity. The only way to overpower a subversion entity is by using a more powerful subversion entity. But then how do you control that? Subversion entities are notoriously difficult to control. I hadn't had the technical difficulties I did in Homeworld Cataclysm, I'd have already Let's Played that, and the use of the term subversion entity would already be established on this channel, because the Beast is also a subversion entity, and the Tide on Remnant's attempts to control it all failed, because it subverted them. So, of course, the Federation had all of our great toys, and they didn't give them to us because they feared that we might become powerful enough to face the SAX, which we have. But there's also the fact that the SAX, I'm not sure if he said it yet or if it was in a previous part, but the SAX can reproduce. It basically, well, I'm assuming it reverts to its gelatinous state before it does this, because otherwise, visually, it would be strange. But it goes gelatin, splits, and then they both form into two new SAXs, which means that not only would they have a Samus that they can make do whatever they want, if they could crack how to control the X, but they could mass-produce Samus Aran clones, with her suit included as an added bonus. I mean, the incredible danger that the SAX or that the X in general represents is palpable. It's incredible. They are potentially galaxy-ending, especially if they were to gain the knowledge and the ability to move around to other worlds. But having an SAX, having a Samus Aran that you can mass-produce and control, that sounds so tempting. Because that's the trick. The Federation can't use a lot of the Chozo technology because it's like gene locked to them. Samus can use it because she was chosen by them to be able to use it. Oh, who's Adam? Here's my point, because it's all delivered by dialogue. I wonder if this was voiced, if they would have given him a voice that sounded like Adam. Like something, it couldn't sound exactly like him because that would just give it away, but like a digitized, scrambled version, maybe it would start to sound more like him towards the end. Because there's a thing later, which is again spoiler territory, that highlights that makes sense. Well, Samus is MVBH, the most valuable bounty hunter in the universe. In terms of singular entities in the Metroid universe, she's probably the most powerful. I mean, her suit, her, ability personally to adapt to changes in circumstances. Let's not forget that in Zero Mission, she loses the suit after when the original Metroid would have ended and ends up improvising in her Zero suit and still managing to pull it off. I mean, she gets her suit back at the end, which became necessary because we fight Robo Ridley. I'm not sure we can call it Mecha Ridley, because I think the Cyborg Ridley is also known as Mecha Ridley. So, Robo Ridley, the Ridley robot. Not entirely sure why. Because it's not even like a complete robot. It's not like it's linked to the ship. It's got all these wires trailing off to I don't know what. It's weird. Cool, but weird. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yes, the overall time for this message to spool out was 8 minutes. So had this message not... this video would be 30 minutes long, about the same size as all the other ones. But it's this big plot dump that makes it take so much longer. And again, I could have sped up the text, but not only have I not done that this entire route, apart from a second here or there where I just... my thumb leant too heavily on the button. This is a big character moment. We should take our time with it. Process the information. And then, of course, the computer gives us advice on how to deal with this. Because here's the thing, right? There's going to be a big beat here. And I made the point before about how her visor is opaque now. Again, reflecting her cool... And then right there, that moment with the eyes, that split-second thing that happens, really lends weight to that delivery of this revelation of him conducting himself like Adam. And this kind of like the shock. By creating a character who almost nothing phases them, you need to make the things that do important. And yes, that was an even smoother transition. We're back into the final run, the good run. That's another thing I'm not a huge fan of in terms of how this tracks items. So in your New Game Plus, you get a list which shows in the game overall how many missile tanks, how many E-tanks, and how many power bomb tanks you have. But for each zone, you don't get a precise count. You basically just get a check mark next to that particular inventory item once you've collected all of the ones in a given sector. Whereas in Zero Mission, I don't quite remember, because again, long time ago, but it tracked items by location, like the precise number of items by location, so you knew exactly what you were looking for, what you were missing. I'm not sure how it handled the map overall. I don't know, because there was a map screen for that, and maybe that had the information. Yes, here I work out that it's actually more efficient for me to go left and then up that vertical column to get out of here, because it'll drop me off closer to the entrance. The right path looks like there's a more direct route, but it's actually blocked. Like one of the 3-block high vertical shafts has an indestructible obstruction in the middle of it. That's the one that diverts you to the boss fight for this sector up against the Charge Beam X, the Chozo Statue X. That's actually another detail that I didn't quite notice my first time around. The Plant X. When I said that the root of the plants, or the nexus, the core of the plants, looked like a Chozo statue, only fleshier. When it starts disintegrating due to damage, it does so in a way similar to the Torzio, the Chozo statues from Super Metroid, where its head, like, falls off, and its chest sort of bursts open with, like, dripping veins or roots, which is exactly what happens to the Chozo statues in Super Metroid. So yeah, it's a Chozo statue. Why is it growing veins? We don't know. I mean, the special ability we get from that is the Plasma Beam, which... what does that have to do with plant roots? But, okay, sure. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's a game. Play it. Have fun. Don't start trying to dissect it for scientific truism. Yes, there's one final power-up here in the main deck, which is in an area that we would have needed the power bomb while here to access, but the last time we were here we didn't have it, and it would have been pointless considering we'd have to come back here anyway to get it once we had the power bomb. So yeah, power bomb there, destroy that X obstruction, and we can all get on with our lives. Yeah, the final fight versus the SAX was underwhelming. You'd figure that, as I said, Samus is more vulnerable in this form, and she doesn't have her full set of abilities back, that she would be at more of an even match, or even a disadvantage. But honestly, you can just annihilate the SAX very quickly. Although, a lot of the more recent Metroid games have final bosses that tend to be more symbolic or cinematic as opposed to an actual challenge for the player. Let's not forget that you can lose the fight with Mother Brain if one of her drain attacks happens to be... because there's a sort of grace area in Samus's health. She needs to get you below a certain point but her drain attack is not scripted to spare you. If your health is above the point she needs to get you down to, but below a point where the drain attack will run you to 0, it is possible for Mother Brain to kill you in Super Metroid. It's really arbitrary, because your health has to be in a very specific range, but it does happen. But other than that, that whole fight is basically just scripted. So yes, what special pro strat do you need to defeat the SAS? Full charge, beam attack, back off. Full charge, beam attack, back off. You know, bounce back and forth between either side of the room. Literally rinse and repeat. Because there's like a recovery period whenever the SAS lands, and it gets pain locked from your attack. Now, it can still run you down fast, so you want to keep it in the stun lock like that. Then it goes all John Carpenter's The Thing. Multiple legs on its legs, numerous eyes, multiple weird mechanical gun arms, mouths on its shoulders. It is an abomination. Briefly, it's even easier to destroy when that happens. And then the one ability that we lack, that we have lacked this whole time, that was given major lip service in this game in particular, the freaking Ice Beam. That's what we're working towards now. So it's vulnerable, we chase after it for collection, and it dips without entering an absorbable state. Yes, it still had one trick up its sleeve. And then, of course, I don't know why Ridley's theme is the same as the run away, everything's gonna blow up, but here we go. So here's my point, because I don't know a tremendous amount about Metroid Dread, but I believe it takes place on SR-388, because the X are described as being native to that planet. But the whole point at the end of this game is that we crash the station into SR-388 to include the planet in the, quote, vaporization field. So did that just not work as well as we were hoping? And the planet survived and the X survived with it? I mean, or am I misinformed that Metroid Dread does not take place on SR-388 and instead takes place on some completely different planet that the X somehow got to, or maybe the Federation even brought them there? I mean, they kept Metroids in secret twice now, Other M and Metroid Fusion. Who's to say they don't have a secret thing full of X somewhere? And then the approach to our ship is looking a little Shrek'd. What the hell happened here? Now here's a weird point for me. Omega Metroids, like, physically shapeshift from Zetas. They don't, like, shed like that. Metroids typically only shed going from Larva to Alpha and from Gamma to Zeta. Now this is a scripted sequence. You take one hit and you're down to 1 energy. Now, some people say that the SAX sacrifices itself for Samus, but that's inaccurate. The SAX is basically doing what is logical from its perspective, considering its only interest is to survive. It knows the station is going to crash, there's nothing it can do about it, so it tries to go on to the only escape craft available, Samus' ship. So, it came here for the same reason you did, and when it encounters the Omega Metroid, it perhaps rationalizes that the only way that the ship is going to come back is if the Omega Metroid is defeated, and of course the Omega Metroid is its natural enemy. So it fights it, loses, and now is vulnerable enough to be absorbed. And again, the fight is so easy after that point that it's basically trivial. But here's another thing. Metroid 2 established that you destroy Metroids past their larval stage with missiles. Hell, you destroy Metroids in their larval stage with missiles. You just have to freeze them first, yet you defeat this Omega Metroid with the Ice Beam. Now, I get that Metroids mutate and the Federation's been experimenting on them, so their vulnerabilities are not necessarily the same. But that's one of those things where you're left like, there's an inconsistency here. That shouldn't have worked. That shouldn't have been how that went. And here they kind of drop like a weird bombshell that apparently Adam Malkovich's brainwave patterns or something were replicated in a computer? Question mark? It's a weird thing to have happen, okay? That's what I'm gonna say. Like, Forget how. Why? Why is it this way? Why did it happen like this? And of course, Samus is getting closer to her classic look. She's got the orange back. Which is another thing I don't get. Why is she blue again in the next in Dread? It's almost like the Metroid series itself is trying to forget this game exists just a little bit. Her suit is different in Dread than it ended in this one. Metroids are vulnerable to ice in this one for some reason. This is very much the odd one out. And people have given it some hate for that. Not nearly as much as Other M, but in Other M at least it's deserved. This is a very different take in the Metroid universe, but it's not a bad one. Metroid Fusion is a good game. It's unfortunate the effort I had to put to make this work as an LP, which soured my grapes a little bit, but I enjoyed playing it. And I feel that Metroid Fusion gets some hate that it doesn't really deserve. Different is not synonymous with bad. Being warned that I'm running out of disk space. Hopefully I have enough left for the remainder of this recording. But yes, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that thank all of you for following this series. If you have followed it in its entirety, thank you very much for that. For those of you who have chosen to subscribe, either now or previously, your subscription is much appreciated. I'm sorry recently, and for some of you there might be no context for this, but I haven't gotten to my comments in a while. I'm not going into a social coma. I will get back to them. I have been inundated with things to do. I just haven't had the time. Because I could just give a token response, but I like getting comments done on a case-by-case basis, and, you know, that takes time, which leads to a delay to me getting them. So it's an issue of, do you want a response quickly, or do you want a response that's of good quality, that, you know, actually addresses whatever was mentioned? I tend to err on that side. Maybe people have different sensibilities. But that aside, this is Metroid Fusion, or this has been Metroid Fusion. I have LPs of the same win conditions for Super Metroid, another Metroid 2 remake, which Metroid 2 effectively, and Zero Mission. I have not played the classic games because they are brutal, and I'm not as well rehearsed with them. There's also that. If you want to check those out, by all means. There are also other things I've done on this channel. I know I'm plugging my own channel right now, but honestly, I do it a lot less than a lot of people do. Because, like a lot of you, I find the self-plugging can get grating after a while. Every video, the same message all the time. I mean, if you're on this platform, I assume that you probably know what you should do if you want to support the channel. With that being said, all of you, thank you all so much for watching. There might be more Metroid titles that I will get into, maybe even the Prime series. I can't say when, I can't say with any certainty if, but hopefully. I hope all of you are staying happy and healthy out there, and as always, fare thee well.